you ever see that SNL skit where Chris Farley interviews Paul McCartney? Like he asks him, "Do you remember when you were in the Beatles?" Like, well, we might have a moment or two like that.
That's fine. It's okay.
But yeah, today we have Emmy Simpkins of co-owner of Crossift Speakeasy and just launching Simpkins Systems, which is going to be cool. We're going to talk about that.
Yeah.
And thank you for blocking off some time today.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So, I've been watching you create content. You're stepping outside. Obviously, well, not obviously. I just started going to the gym like a little over a year ago. Fitness was something that like I've always kind of dreamed about. Like me being in shape. I was pretty unhealthy for quite some time. So I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll take my body in the other direction and try and get super healthy. And but yeah, it's been great. You guys have a great. You and Rob and Anthony and Caitlin have a great environment over there. Set everybody up. So welcome.
Well, first of all, congratulations for making that leap and taking that step. It's not easy. So
no,
yeah,
no, it's not natural to like
get uncomfortable.
Yeah, and that was like a. So yesterday when we spoke, we talked a lot about being uncomfortable, and everything on the other side of discomfort is like where all the best things in life, in my experience, have all those great things lie on the other side of that discomfort. So I know that you were a collegiate athlete.
Yeah, I played soccer at Rutgers. I'm not even from New Jersey, so grew up in Maryland.
Okay.
Was there for up until my sophomore year of high school. My parents had gotten divorced previously, and then we decided my mom's family was in North Carolina, so we moved to North Carolina, finished high school down there, and then that's when I was starting to go through the recruiting process for colleges, and I came up to New Jersey on a visit to Rutgers, and I absolutely just fell in love.
Really?
Committed right there on the
Right
spot,
on.
which is, it's not really common for people to do that.
No.
Like, you usually go to several schools, and I had gone to a couple, but the coach will make their offer, you sit with it for a little bit,
Right.
but I just remember sitting down with the head coach at the end of my visit, and he just gave the verbal offer right there, and I was like, yep, I'm coming. And he literally was so startled by it, and he was like, wait, what? And I was like,
nice.
Yeah, I'm coming. I was like,
that's awesome.
No ifs, ands, or buts about
That's
it.
cool.
And so, yeah, I moved up here when I was 18. I've never looked back. Yeah.
Sweet.
So, been here almost 15 years now.
I checked out that YouTube video of you from 2011 when they interviewed you. So we will make that make a point for that to show up into this.
Oh, please don't. No.
A lot of people think we're weird, crazy, and they're right.
I was like, because I know you've done interviews before, so I was like looking for that interview, and I could not find it, which is probably a better thing. So we'll have plenty.
Yes, thank goodness.
Yes.
Oh well, I mean, it's funny because, how you were saying that fitness, fitness has started to become a big part of your life and kind of transform you in that area of discomfort. I would never in a million years believe if you asked me when I was 16, 17, 18 years old, or not ask me or tell me you're going to own a gym one day and be training people, I would have literally laughed in your face.
Yeah.
I would have I was not the healthiest of people. I always got by on talent, being gifted with my athletic ability with soccer and being a goalkeeper. But
putting
as far
in the bare
as
minimum.
What literally just putting in enough to just get by.
Yep.
Just get by. And I know saying that, and people might be like, just get by and you're a Division I athlete. It's like, yeah, hindsight's 2020. Imagine if I actually would have tried.
There's a few moments in my life where I'm like, I left a lot on the table.
Yeah, and college, moving away from home, things kind of being in your own hands. You have a little fun, maybe eat a little too much,
for sure.
Put some more pounds on, and yeah, I was definitely not the example of what a healthy lifestyle,
Division I athlete.
Yeah, should be. I was not by any means. And it wasn't until, I know we spoke about it, but it wasn't until it was my second to last season or third to last season. I was the captain. I was the starting goalkeeper at Rutgers, and we had one of the worst seasons in program history. And our coaches brought us in, they sat us down, the captains, and they were like, as of right now, there are no captains and there are no starting positions. Like, nothing is guaranteed.
Yeah.
And that hit some heartstrings, because I find that a lot of people find validity within themselves by how other people perceive them.
Sure.
So if I was no longer a starter, if I was no longer a captain, what is my worth?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was like a really like kind of like shallow way to think. But you're young and you don't understand those things.
Yeah, yeah.
And I remember going home and my drive wasn't necessarily to be the best, but it was more so like, can I maintain that social status almost of like being recognized, being known, and by being a starter and by being a captain, like, you have that identity already.
Was it difficult for you to put aside the pride and the ego, like, because you had to like try out, like almost like you're essentially like kind of trying out? Cause did you want to be captain after they removed that status? Did you still want to be captain?
Oh yeah, I still wanted to be it because you start to identify yourself as that,
right?
As a leader. But here I was not doing anything.
No leadership
qualities at that point in my life. And again, hindsight's 20/20. Like I'm glad like where I am now and who I am now and who I continue to strive to be. I can look back on those experiences and I can identify like what I was doing wrong, where I was wrong, what it really means to be a leader, and now fix that.
Right.
In my life now. So, needless to say, I went back after that meeting. We all went home for like winter break, which is like a longer duration, like about a month and a half. And my sister, she played soccer at Duke. I remember I came home and we were talking about what was happening, and she was like, "Did you ever try CrossFit?" Now keep in mind, this is back in like 2010. 2000.
CrossFit wasn't that big then, right?
It wasn't that big yet. It was starting to like come about, but it really wasn't as mainstream as it's become. And she was telling me about it, and I literally like laughed in her face. I was like, I will never do that. Yeah. I was like, that sounds like the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
Dude, I was the same way.
Yeah, I was like, that's the most dumb thing I've ever heard. And she was like, she like begged me. She was like, please, like, just come with me. Like, I want to do it. I want to try it. And so I was like, all right, fine. So we went to a class. I'll never forget my first workout. It was 10 rounds of 7 wall balls and 7 pull-ups. Now, again, if you're going to take that image of that 2011 interview, you can see that back then I was not nearly as light or as in shape as I am now. So 1 pull-up wasn't even in my regimen.
Pull-ups are hard, man.
So now you're talking 49 or 77 times 10, 70 pull-ups.
Yeah.
I was like, what? This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
But needless to say, I got through it. I was scaled immensely. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't walk or like move my arms for like several days. But for whatever reason, like there was something that happened in that moment that I was like, whoa, what haven't I been doing? It's like I've been an athlete my entire life and I've never felt like this. I've lifted my entire life. I was always strong.
Yeah.
And, I've been lifting since I was in 9th grade, but I had never felt like that. I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
And needless to say, I went back every day, like with my sister over that break. Lost a lot of weight and came back into the spring season and just really kind of changed my whole mentality of how I viewed fitness.
Right.
And had a better season, kept doing CrossFit throughout the whole thing. I ended up losing a lot of weight. And then I joined a gym up in New Jersey, trained like through season, through preseason, through the summer, you name it. I just didn't stop.
Yeah.
I would go to a CrossFit class at 6 a.m., get out at 7, drive back to Rutgers, go to soccer practice from 8 to 10, and then from 10 to 11 you had team lift, and then the entire afternoon you're doing your classes and all of that stuff.
Right,
and that was my day, every day, all the time.
That's dedication.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was. And, CrossFit changed my life. It changed the entire course of my life. And yeah. So
That's beautiful.
yeah,
No, it's nice to find something that you're passionate about, because when you're just kind of like floating out there and like have no like real drive or like doing anything with like a positive outlet, for me, example, like I get inside my head,
yeah.
my head starts talking to me, I do some fucked up shit, you know what I mean, like,
Oh
and I,
yeah.
hurt some people on the way, and
Mhm.
and I just come out of it and I'm just like, you just need, we need like healthy things in our lives to be, or for at least for me to be okay. You know what I mean? Like for me, like we kind of talked about yesterday, just existing without anything driving me.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm.
I get in that space of like I get super uncomfortable, and again, like the mind will start wandering. So like you know, since then, have you hit like another plateau where you've been like, I got to do something different?
I wouldn't say necessarily like something different. Again, I think if we look back at my career in CrossFit, upon graduating college, I was fortunate enough that I was offered a coaching position at a CrossFit gym immediately graduating, which was, for a college student coming out, a lot of people do internships, and unfortunately, like if you're a student athlete, it's really difficult for you to do internships.
Right.
It's, and then they also say like being a student athlete, it's easier for you to get hired places, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. I didn't know who I wanted to be. I didn't know what I wanted my career to be. I didn't know anything about that. I knew I loved sports. I loved soccer, and I did love coaching. Throughout my career at Rutgers, like throughout the summers, the coaches and stuff would hook us up with local like teams, like young teams, and I would coach the goalkeepers, and I loved that. And kids
Yeah.
always took to me, because I feel like I have like a very youthful kind of personality.
For sure.
And I was fortunate enough that upon graduating college, I was offered a coaching position at a gym in New Brunswick, so like right around
Okay.
Rutgers.
Yeah.
So I was the head coach there for a while, and then my two best friends, Tim and Aaron Carroll, who own 908 Athletics, but at that time was CrossFit 908. They were opening another gym in Jersey City, and which was CrossFit Jersey City. They needed a head coach, and these are two people that changed the course of my life. They were the coaches at the gym when I was kind of going through that rough period,
Right.
and just getting into it. And they offered me a head coach position in Jersey City. I took that, and I was dating somebody down the shore, and I was coming down to the Belmar area a lot, and that's when I met Rob.
Cool.
And then Rob had presented me with the opportunity of buying into Speakeasy. And I remember going to Tim, and this again, not only is it my boss that I'm going to, but it was also my best friend, and
Right.
and saying, hey, I've been offered this opportunity. What do you think? And I'll never forget his response to me was, if I was in a position that I could offer you something equal or better than an ownership in a gym, I would. But this is a good opportunity for you to become a business owner,
Yes.
to learn, and I'm not going to take that away from you.
Yeah.
Like, yes, losing you would suck,
Yeah.
but for your own growth and because I care about you and you're my friend, this is what you need to do.
Dude, that is so like that's
Yeah.
like true friend. That's what the whole love thing is about. You know what I mean? Like as
Absolutely.
much as like selfishly, right? He doesn't
Yeah.
want you to leave,
Right.
but like this is the best thing for you. You know what I mean? And
1,000%.
and like go do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And I'm forever grateful for him for that, and we're still great friends to this day.
That's right.
And so that's what I did, and that's when I bought into Speakeasy. I came down, I became an owner, and during that time, I was getting very good at exercising and per se, and I was becoming a professional CrossFit athlete. I competed at some of the highest levels that you can in the CrossFit world, and done some of the biggest competitions you can do as a CrossFit athlete. And along the way, like had a lot of injuries that started being a lot of setbacks, and I know we talked on it a little bit, but in the CrossFit world, especially because it is so new and the sport of CrossFit is ever evolving and it's evolving very quickly, and people are starting it younger and younger and just developing and progressing faster and faster. One injury that puts you out of training for 6 to 9 months in the CrossFit world, that can really be putting you back, like as far as like your progression and how quickly people are getting stronger and fitter and like being able to go longer and handle more volume. That puts you back a long time. And when I was having like it was, and it really started again going back to that identity part of what I struggled with in college. I had identified myself as a CrossFit athlete, and when that was taken away from me, it put me in a dark, dark place. I did not like who I was at all, by any means. I actually...
How did you what were you, was it like you were like acting out, like...
It put me like in a deep state of depression.
Yeah.
Yeah. For a long time, CrossFit was my outlet.
Right.
And once again, I think going back to that validity and outside validation from people, like recognizing who you are because of what you do, not recognizing who you are for who you are.
Right.
And I struggled with that a lot. Like, people knew me as Emmy, the CrossFit athlete. If Emmy wasn't a CrossFit athlete anymore, who was she?
Yeah.
I felt like people respected me because of that. And if I didn't have that anymore, then I no longer had people's respect. And again, that was my own insecurity. That's not, again, hindsight's 20/20.
For sure.
Looking back, that's
so
irrational.
How did you deal with all? You don't seem like the type of girl that just pops Zans and just goes and like bangs it back with whiskey. Like,
well, I did. I was.
All right.
Yeah. So
word.
Exactly.
Word. All right. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
I started doing a lot of things that I probably shouldn't have done. Drugs. Started drinking a lot.
Yep.
Dealing with a lot of anger.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff that I didn't want to deal with or didn't want to talk about.
Yeah.
I didn't want to bring it up.
You're right. The image of the athlete. Nobody ever wants to talk about the dark side of athletics, which is a lot of this, right?
Oh, yeah. I think a lot of people, athletes to this day and athletes in the past, like, they struggle with this. And it's something that, I think people are more and more beginning to come open about it and talk about it. A lot of professional athletes, like I know some of the tennis players like Naomi Osaka, like coming out and just being like, the pressure is too much sometimes, like I'm going to step away.
Sure.
And then
that was last summer, right?
Yeah, and then you get the social media that just wants to like flip the script and talk about all this stuff, and it's like people will never understand. And I was exercising. I wasn't on like this high stage of like being paid millions and millions of dollars and sponsorships and all this stuff. So like I can't even begin to imagine the pressure that these athletes, men and women, feel.
Yeah.
And to even know like where I was at and how I dealt with it, I applaud a lot of these athletes that, especially in individual sports, that step out there and perform on a regular basis and then, might go home at night and just cry and not enjoy what they're doing.
Yeah.
But they feel like they have to do it. And...
yeah, we were talking about that on a couple of, it's always like, there's always something else that, like, somebody would rather be doing. You know what I mean? Like, there's always... you start to take a little bit of the love out of the game and people start to seek outside, like Jordan wanted to play baseball. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Tiger was like obsessed with like Navy SEAL training and endurance sports and stuff like that. You know what I mean? But because these guys, like you said, there's just like an incredible amount of pressure.
You also like when your entire life is one thing, it's. You're missing out on a lot too. Like I know, again, professional athletes, like that's their job. Right. It's your job to perform. It's your job to train. It's your job to make sure that you are on time and doing the things that you're supposed to do and contracted to do. Absolutely, a job is a job, and if you've got something to do, you've got something to do. But when you're put in the limelight of things and on a regular basis and you have no personal life,
Right.
you know, I can't imagine what that begins to feel like. Like and we've talked about this too, like even as simple as like what my job may be, I always have to be on.
Mm-hmm.
You know, as far as like being an owner and being a coach, you're dealing with, you know, sometimes hundreds of people that come through your facility on a regular basis, and you need to know their names, you need to know their occupation, you need to know their family life, what their kids' names are, their dogs, if is someone sick, like is someone sick in the family, are they dealing with stuff? You know, those are all extremely important aspects of being a coach.
Yeah.
You've got to understand. You've got to understand your athletes. You've got to know what they're going through. You've got to know what's important to them. You've got to know what their goals are.
To pull the best out of them.
To pull the best out of them. But, you know, at the end of the day, all any of us want is to be loved, to feel loved, and to feel cared about. Yep. You know, and that's my job 7 days a week for a lot of different people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then on top of career, you know, I've got my relationship, I've got my family, I've got my friends that I still also have to try and maintain too. So, yeah, there are times that like it catches up to you, and you're like, whew, you know, you're trying to fill everybody else's cup, but you're not filling your own.
Dude, 1000%. But do you feel that like by you being a part of that, by putting your hand out like that and in one, you know, whether you get paid or not, it's a form of service. But I mean that fills you up. You know, of course, you need like personal time in each of these areas. But I mean,
absolutely,
without that, you would feel empty.
And again, I do what I do because I love it.
For sure.
You know, and I love seeing the smile on someone's face when they do something that they didn't think that they could ever do.
You get the same feeling doing this that you did competing?
It's different. You know, competing for me was a performance.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I would say that in another life I would be some sort of performer. You know, whether it's the head singer in a metal band or or in a circus, you know, or the ringleader in a circus. I would be some sort of performer.
Okay.
And I love creativity, and competing was my stage. That was my opportunity to be creative and show like who I am through what I do. Mm-hmm. And I was never one of these top 10 CrossFit Games athletes or anything like that, but I'll never forget every competition that I would go and do that was on the stage with, you know, I'd be competing against those athletes. I'd have people coming up to me after an event and being like, I loved watching you. Like I just loved watching. It just looked like you were having the time of your life out there.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, you know, of course, like competition and whatever you're doing, but it's always you against you, right? You know what I mean? It's always me trying to be better than the guy that I was, you know, last week or, you know, certainly 6 years ago. You know what I mean? So like it's all about, you know, the continual growth and how much is available to really experience that. You know, like I am a firm believer as long as I'm here, I'm going to try and experience as many things as I possibly can. You know, like I haven't traveled much, but that is definitely something that I look to do in the future. And you know, there's like a ton of different things, but the driving force of all of it is by me like competing with myself. Getting out of myself, the service that we were talking about before, like, you know, like all that stuff is like it makes, you know, living worth every.
You got to have fun, you know. And we talked about that, and going back to the original question of like, you know, do you find yourself like kind of plateauing in areas? And I would say that for the majority of my athletic career, as far as like soccer and college and whatnot, I was plateaued. You know, I was content with where I was and what I was achieving at that point. But as I got into CrossFit and I was seeing not only a physical progression, but also this mindset progression and being able to relate it to other areas of my life, of this consistent effort of showing up, but then I try to get to the root of why did I keep showing up? And I kept showing up because I was having fun.
Yeah.
I kept showing up because I was around people I enjoyed being around. And that now has started to be the foundation of the Simpkins system.
Cool.
And this kind of next step, I guess you could say, that I'm working towards in my career. I will, like, Speakeasy will always be there. Like, I will always be an owner of Speakeasy, and I will always be a coach there coaching the group classes. Like, that's my community. That's like
That's
my
the heartbeat.
That's where it starts, you know?
Yeah.
But now, as I'm having this opportunity with the Simpkins system, which is my version of training the next generation of professional athletes, my entire basis is fun. You know, I had an opportunity towards the end of last year, like back in like end of summer, beginning of fall, where I got to train the former #1 tennis player in the world, Kim Clijsters. She is, you know, former #1 tennis Hall of Fame. She's won 4 Grand Slams. The only tennis player in history to be #1 in singles and in doubles at the same time.
Wow.
You know, this is a big deal. Like,
Yeah.
big deal. Big
Sounds like a big deal,
opportunity.
and I don't know anything about tennis.
And I knew a little bit about tennis. My parents really enjoyed watching it growing up.
Sure.
So
My mother did too.
yeah, we would always watch it. Yeah, ask your mom if she knows who Kim Clijsters is. Guaranteed, mom knows.
All
Like,
right,
it's
word. I will.
yeah. So I didn't really know much, and I didn't know much about her. And I remember she moved here from Belgium. She has 3 kids. She's married, and her husband actually came to me first, because he's from Belmar. And I remember he came to me, and we were chatting in the gym one day, and he was just like, you know, I think Kim is considering, you know, trying to play on tour again. Would you have any interest in training her and helping her get back to that level? And I just remember sitting there, and I was saying to him, I was like, listen, man, I know nothing about tennis. Like, I don't know anything at all, but I know how to get somebody fit. I know how to help somebody lose weight. I know all that kind of stuff. So I will give you what I've got.
Right.
So I just remember from that moment, I went home, started watching a lot of tennis matches.
Right.
Started like...
The scoring is so weird.
Yeah. I mean... 15 love, 30 love, deuce, like add in, add out. Oh man, dude, I had a lot to learn.
Yeah.
I had a lot to learn. But I learned it. And I learned it fast. And I learned like tiebreakers and how many sets and
it's it's exhausting
break point,
watching
set point, like all that kind of stuff. Like I learned it all, and you know, because of Kim obviously too. So but I remember one of the things I said to Brian when we were chatting, I said, listen, if there's anything that I know, if she wants to do this, is 2 things. 1, she has to have fun, and 2, she has to trust me. And I think those 2 things have become like the basis of everything that I do.
Yeah.
You know,
of all relationships, right?
Of all relationships, you know,
yeah,
like
you have to come across as an authentic person.
Yeah, I would like to think that I'm a fun person when people are around me. Like, I like to think that we have fun. I mean, I have fun.
No, the first time, like one of my first classes there, like we had to like grab, I don't know, we had to go over and grab bars because we were starting, and I remember I grabbed like a training bar, and you're like, Darren, no, no, you know, but you're like,
what are you doing, man?
but like. But the fear I had, like, walking in there, because, like I told you, I've never, like, I wasn't a gym guy, but, like, walking in there, you were like, I was like, all right, cool, like, Emmy's here, like, I feel better now.
Cool,
You
man.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because, like, that calmed me down, you know, and I'm sure that echoes through all your relationships.
Yeah, and I think now with the Simpkins system, like, I'm getting an opportunity to train a lot of, like, kids, like, teenagers, that want to play their sport, whether it be varsity in their high school or Division I, you know, or, you know, I've got a couple that potentially could be professionals in their sport.
Wow.
And I know that for me, like, soccer started to feel like a job. It was something I felt like I had to do. And I had to do it because that was my status. You know, it wasn't. And then for CrossFit, it wasn't something I felt like I had to do.
Right.
I was doing it, and I got to the level that I got to because I had fun.
It was like an outlet for you.
Yeah, it was an outlet, and I enjoyed going. I enjoyed, everybody talks about the process. I didn't even, it wasn't even in my mind that I was going to be a professional CrossFit athlete.
Right.
It was, I think once I realized that it was a possibility, like now that became like an underlying motivation, I guess you could say. But for the most part, I loved it. I just loved it. I loved going in and being with my friends and goofing off and then getting to it. When it was time to work, it was time to work.
Right.
We got in, we had our fun, and then we would get right to work. And even while we were getting to work, lying on our backs, like bent over, hands on our knees, you name it, like on the side of the building, puking, whatever.
Yeah.
We were still having fun. Like, we were laughing about it. We were videotaping each other, like, dying and
Right,
laughing about it later.
Yeah.
It's just like, it was always fun. And that's what I want to get across for, like, my kids that I train. Is
like,
that
don't take the fun out of it.
Don't take the fun out of it. And unfortunately, I feel with social media these days, I think that even expedites taking the fun out of it. There's so much comparison. There's so much looking at what this person is doing and feeling like that's what you should be doing.
Right.
And that doesn't become fun. That's not fun anymore.
No. And when it starts to feel like work, you start to take like all those like that little extra push, right? That'll cross you over to that new level.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like if you're just sucking all of that like drive out of it, then what's the point?
Right. Yeah.
And
then like the trust factor too, like these people are trusting me with their health and their fitness. My kids are trusting me with their performance and getting them to where they want to be. And I have some kids that they'll come in for a session and they're like, I can just tell they're just not having a good day. And I've got to be able to recognize that. And I've got to be able to ask the right questions. And I've got to be able to listen and actively listen. And I've got to be able to understand what my role is. These parents are paying me to coach their kids.
For sure.
These parents aren't paying me to parent their kids.
So are you pushing that kid on that day, or are you?
Maybe a little bit different.
Yeah.
Maybe if they walk in and I see like something's bothering them or something's on their mind, I'll ask what's going on. If they feel like talking about it, we'll talk about it. If they don't feel like talking about it, we won't talk about it. And I'll tell them right then and there. I'll be like, listen, I see something's bothering you.
Right.
I get it. If you want to talk about it, we can. If you don't, we don't have to. Do you want to train today? And the fact that they showed up, kind of already tells me like, they want to be there, and whether that's just to sit and be away.
Yeah.
Then fine. Then I'll just tell them, all right, listen, here's the plan. And I'll tell them right then and there what the plan is, what we're doing, and if I've got to tailor on the fly, I'll tailor on the fly. And again, sometimes I'll get kids that just come in and they just want to talk about their breakups.
High school love.
Yes, exactly.
Yes. Yeah. The end all, the be all, the high school love. So training athletes now, do you think training youth athletics, do you feel that that's like kind of, that business can kind of be looked at as like kind of grimy, and then at the same time it's like you said, you have people that like, it's just athletics is big business, right? Especially youth sports. Like I worked for this agency years ago that was involved with IMG Academies down in Bradenton, Florida. And just like some of the athletes that were coming out of like New Jersey and Pennsylvania, like just the crazy amount of pressure that these kids. So we kind of touched on it, but like where do you encourage them to be kids and then them to be athletes, and how does that, and then are those kids are obviously different than the other kids. So like are you coaching that life about like, stay away from this, do that, you know what I mean? You can't stand over them the whole time.
Right. No, I can't. I think that's like what my system is.
Okay.
The way I operate is obviously first conversation is generally parent to me. And what I've seen as an outsider looking in, and again, a lot of these academies or performance, sports performance facilities, whatever, they just kind of pump kids through.
Mm-hmm.
If mom and dad have the money to do it, we're going to take your money, and, we're
The
gonna
soft skills are kind of
gonna-
what you're focusing.
Yeah, like they're gonna just kind of put you through the same routine that everybody else is doing. And once again, going back to how I enjoy coaching, like not everybody can be coached the same.
Right.
Every athlete's different. And so my system is more, my first conversation is with the parent. And when I have this conversation with the parent, I like to get to know like what they do, what the kid's life is like, what else does the kid enjoy doing.
Right.
What would you say their main sport
Is there
is?
anything I need to know?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like any injuries that I'm dealing with, just the general kind of questions. And then, I like to finish the conversation with, and not necessarily like in this context, kind of just depends on the flow of the conversation, but does your child want to do this? Or do you want your child to do this?
Yeah, that's important.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. Because, one, going back to the fun, if they're not having fun, they're not going to want to keep coming.
Is this some vicarious pleasure for the parent?
Yeah, like maybe them kind of like vicariously living through their child, or wanting them to not make the same mistakes that they did, or wanting them to have opportunities that they might not necessarily have had, whatever. And I get that. Every parent wants what's best, and every parent is doing the best that they can.
For sure.
I get that. I 100% get that. But I have that conversation with the parents. And there have been multiple conversations that I've had, and they're phenomenal conversations. I don't want to think that it's like me telling them like, nope, sorry, I'm not going to train your kid. Like that's not how that works. It's the parent coming to the realization of like, wow, maybe I didn't think of it like that. And then they'll be like, you know what? Maybe you're right. Maybe I shouldn't train. Like maybe I shouldn't be pushing this person this far, or pushing my kid this far. And you're talking like 6th, 7th, 8th graders too.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, let them be kids.
My dad signed me up for baseball. I still hold a resentment. I wanted to play lacrosse.
Okay,
yeah. You know what I mean?
And again, like looking back, your parents are just trying to do what's best.
Yep.
And now if we have that conversation with the parent, and then I want them to now have the conversation with their kid, and sit down with their kid and really find out, is this something that they want to do? And then if I get the phone call back from the parent, like, hey, yep, talk to him, talk to her, we're in, let's get on it. I'm like, all right, sweet. So then I'll schedule the first session, and then the first session for me is, okay, now how am I gonna vibe with this kid? Am I gonna be able to? Can I tell if this kid really wants to be here or not? And most part, after those two conversations happen, meet a parent to child, and the child still comes and trains, they want to be there.
Then we're ready.
We're ready. And I'll develop a game plan from there.
You tailor each kid, like once you feel out each kid, your classes are smaller?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
The way my system works, I train every single kid one-on-one.
Okay.
Every
kid has their own little plan.
Every kid,
Okay.
every teen, every athlete has their own little plan.
Wow.
Individually.
Wow.
That I will come up with.
Not a lot of places do that.
No, I mean,
That's
but
great.
it's not cheap either. But that's the other reason why I have that conversation with the parents, because there's two things. One, if you're not having that conversation with your child, if they want to be there, and you're making them go there, and they're not getting out what I would get from an athlete that wants to be there, they're not putting in, therefore they're not going to get out what the parent might be expecting. One, that looks bad on me.
Yeah.
Because it's my job to fulfill some sort of expectation for the parent. And the other thing is that you're wasting your money. Like you're wasting your money putting your kid in this program when they don't really want to be there.
Yep.
Now, I think that on the reverse, do I also condone, like, if the kid's like, I want to sit home and play video games all day? No, I don't condone that. But
Right.
maybe you sign your kid up then for a rec league. Mm-hmm. So you keep them physically active. I will always, always, always support and, praise and, that physical activity should always 1000% be some sort of, priority in everybody's life.
Mm-hmm.
So
1000%.
if the kid's like, I want to be a gamer, like let the kid be a gamer, but maybe spending X amount of money for him to have private sessions because you want him to be an athlete.
Yeah, is
not the way to go.
Yeah,
exactly.
No, you're right. Yeah.
So
that answers the question though, because like that's really what I was trying to get to. I was like, because the grimy way that they push that, because a lot of those places will see the talent in some of these young kids and like get their hooks in them again to represent them when they get out of the what I mean. And then you're bringing more of like a very like humanistic, very like softer approach while pushing the kid, and I think you get more out of them, than like running it through like it was like a boot camp, for lack of a better term.
I think that as this starts to evolve and it's it's in its beginning stages. Like what I mean by this, I mean the Simpkins system. I think that the next stage, because competition is a driving force for athletes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like people like to go play pickup basketball, and they like to play with people that are better than them.
Yep.
And because they want to be good and they want to compete.
Yep.
Like it is human nature
for sure
to want to compete.
Yep.
And to want to win. And so I think the next stages for me with the Simpkins system is, all right, we begin everybody one-on-one, right? And let's say I've got 2 or 3 7th to 9th grade boys that I feel would work really, really well together.
Mm-hmm.
They would really push each other. Now I'll start doing like small group training with them. And but after I've addressed and worked with these athletes one-on-one, I've established a personal relationship
mm-hmm.
with an athlete one-on-one. And then now, all right, I can kind of mix and match and crisscross and be like, okay, well, this kid really wants to work on this, and this kid's got to work on this. Let's put it together.
Perfect.
And let's make a small group, and let's add the socialization aspect, let's add the competitive aspect, let's add the even having more fun aspect.
Right.
Because working out in groups is always fun, more fun.
For sure.
Team sports, group fitness, whatever you name it. You want to do what your buddies are doing. You want to do what your pals are doing. And so now, here we go. We've created this little tiny group, and then I can do that with my girls, and then I can do that with the younger group, and I can start putting together these smaller group trainings. But I would say that, for me, I'm not exceeding five kids in a small group.
I get the most out of that group. Yeah.
Right there, push each other, form good relationships, form good bonds, form good friendships.
Yeah.
And push each other.
Yep.
And I think that's my vision of it. Because now if I can have each of those individual athletes, they trust me, right? They know that I worked with the other ones. Okay, now I put all that together, and I believe you inevitably will have this cohesiveness.
Right.
Of we all have the same principles, we all have the same values, we all like to work hard, we all like to have fun. Let's get after it now.
That's great.
So
this is just in its very infancy.
we are literally in its infancy. Like
okay.
I started prior to CrossFit back when I was in high school, back in North Carolina. I shadowed under the guy who I would call my mentor now, Jed Hardigan. He owned a Velocity Sports Performance facility down in Charlotte, which is where I would train out of. And this man literally took me under his wing, and he taught me everything he knew, or was open to any questions. I was allowed to be there whenever I wanted to be there. I was allowed to sit in and watch or join in on any training session you can imagine. And this is a guy that's trained Steve Smith Sr. from the Carolina Panthers. He's worked with hundreds and hundreds of NFL players and NBA players, and guys continuously to this day travel to train with him.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And this is a guy that I could call up today and be like, hey, can I come down for the weekend? shadow you, hang out. He'd be like, yeah, let's go. Get
That's
on the next
cool.
flight out.
That's cool.
You know,
So this is where it was all birthed from?
this is where it was all birthed from. You know,
Cool.
back in 10th, 11th grade in North Carolina.
And you're like,
so,
I could do this on my own.
Well, you know, again, like I didn't. That if you would have
But
asked
you
me back
wanted
then,
to do it?
right? Well, now
Okay.
I do. Like sports performance, you know, I think for the large part of the years of when I left North Carolina and now here I am, like those large years in between when I was playing soccer, that was my focus. When I was coaching and competing in CrossFit, that was my focus. Business owner and competing in CrossFit, that was my focus. And now it's business owner and just coaching is my focus, not necessarily, you know, competing or like going out and spending, you know, hours upon hours a day training for something for me right now. More for me now, it's hours and hours of training my mind, like reading and studying and learning new techniques, always trying to stay up to date with what's not popular right now, but like what's working, what's working for people. And
do you have to constantly get recertified and things like that?
Oh yeah, you've got to constantly be like recertified for like CrossFit. Okay. You've got to be certified to coach CrossFit classes, and you know I'm the highest. What you can technically be the highest level right now, which is the level 3. There is a level 4, but I don't think that they have that like available for the masses just yet. And then there's the big one that I've been studying for, which is the CSCS, which is your Certified Strength and Conditioning Specialist certification. Okay. So, and that's like very, very extensive. It's like one of like probably the top tier certification that you can get. But yeah, like Jed, he kind of birthed this unknowingly. You know, back then, kind of birthed this idea of like, damn, this is fucking awesome. Yeah. And I would say that seed finally sprouted when I had the opportunity of training Kim Kleisters and traveling with her and training a professional athlete.
Right. You're like, I want to do this.
I was like,
but not quite.
But yeah, I was like, damn, I really want to do this. This is amazing. Look at these opportunities. I can travel. I can do this. I can learn. I can, you know, blah, blah, blah. And then I was like, no, I don't want to train professional athletes anymore. You know, like I love Kim. Love Kim. But it's hard. Yeah. It's demanding.
I was working when I worked with this. I guess like you could call this guy. It was like kind of like a mentor, but like I worked with this guy who had a lot of experience in the sports world, and he was like working with because I told him like I kind of wanted to be an agent at one point, and he's like, dude, it's like you're gonna be a babysitter. He's like, that's what happens. He worked with Natron Means, and that he was a running back for the San Diego Chargers back in the day, and he's like, dude, he's just like, you know, you're just constantly like waiting for your phone to ring in the middle of the night. Yeah. You know what I mean? He's like, you're always on.
I think like with Kim though, I was fortunate because she's a phenomenal human being. Like aside from an athlete, she's a phenomenal human being, and I learned so much from her as far as like coaching professional athletes and what it takes. You know, she was coming out of retirement after 3 kids. Yeah. So being 38 years old, trying to come back on tour for tennis, there was an end, you know. There was an end to it, and there was a quicker end than
she's
a girl
like, we're going to give this a good shot.
We're going to give this a good shot, and we're going to see what happens. But, you know, there was an end. Whether it was 1 season of me traveling with her or 2 seasons, it wasn't going to be long. And I think that's why I took the opportunity, because it wasn't this 18-year-old professional tennis player coming to me who still has, you know, another 10 plus years of her career left. And I remember like traveling with Kim, and before tournaments and stuff or before matches, we'd be in the warm-up area, and I'm just watching like all these trainers and strength and conditioning coaches with their players that travel. And again, remember, this is an individual sport. Right. It's an individual sport. You have
a lot of psychology between the two of them.
A lot, but like there's also a lot of turnover. You know, if someone doesn't perform where that they expect themselves to perform, who gets fired? Yeah. The coaches.
Yeah, of course.
You're done. You're out of here. And thankfully, like, you know, with Kim, like, I didn't have to worry about that.
So
like,
it's just all around a competitive environment.
All
just
around.
Cutthroat.
Cutthroat.
Yeah.
Like, extremely cutthroat.
Yep.
You know, I think in a team environment, it's a little bit different because it's the team that, you know,
Takes
it's
the
not,
accountability.
Yeah, exactly. It's
Yeah.
not necessarily like one individual person,
Right.
but, you know, but within an organization, if you fire a coach, you know, like a football coach, the whole team gets fired. The whole staff gets
Sure.
fired. You know,
Usually,
usually, most
Yep.
likely. But with tennis, like, you could keep your head coach and fire your fitness coach.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, it's just like this revolving door of coaches.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I was just remember, like, sitting there thinking and, like, being in that warm-up area and looking around at all the head coaches, looking around at all the fitness coaches, all the PTs and stuff like that, and just being like, no, I'm good.
Yeah.
You know, because
Yeah.
it was also
Because again, there's the fun. The fun's out of it.
yeah, the fun's
right?
out of it. You're like
Yeah,
sitting there.
just-
I was sweating, like thinking,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
and I'm like, I have nothing to worry about. I've got my gym back home. Like,
Yeah.
this is fun. Like, this
Yeah,
should be
this
fun.
is all-
And I'm like, why am I so
This
worried
is all
about this
gravy.
right now?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But you know, that seed was planted with training, with that opportunity of training Kim and traveling with her. You know, going back to my roots of sports performance, and that it allowed for creativity for me again. You know, like, being able to not know much about tennis and study it and learn it, and having the knowledge that I know from fitness, strength and
That was
conditioning,
definitely
speed,
an asset
agility, you
benefit
know,
of that.
I could get creative with drills and time domains of things and footwork and agility drills. And then when we actually, like, got on court, like at practices and stuff like that, the stuff like that I would try to come up with and try out and do, and then ask feedback from Kim, and
Yeah.
you know, it was fun. Like, that was the fun for me. So then as this started to, like, kind of go underway, you know, Brian is Kim's husband. He's from Belmar, and he played basketball at CBA, and then he went on to play at Villanova, and then he was really close to going into the NBA, but he decided to go overseas and play instead.
Oh.
So he went overseas. He played professionally overseas for 9 seasons, and that's where he met Kim. And, you know, they had a kid, got married, and then he turned to coaching professionally over there in Belgium. And then, you know, when the pandemic hit, they moved back here to the United States. That's when I met them. And Brian ended up getting the head coach position at St. Rose in Belmar.
Right.
And the head men's coach, varsity coach for the men's basketball team at St. Rose. And his goals are to make that program one of these, you know, elite academies that kids
Like a St.
travel.
Anthony's type
yeah,
of thing?
like
Yeah.
a St. Anthony's,
Yep.
which isn't there anymore.
No, I know.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
crazy,
terrible.
right?
I cannot believe that they did not get the funding from their alumni
Dude,
to
I
keep
know.
that thing going.
I like someone said that to me the other day, and I like my jaw like dropped. I was like, wait, what? I didn't hear that.
Yeah.
Like,
The best
the
basketball
best, yeah.
players ever.
Exactly.
It's unbelievable.
yeah.
But
So
anyway.
like, you know, I think that Brian wants to make St. Rose be one of those, and it'll take time. You know, it'll take time because a lot of those kids are multi-sport kids. Like,
Yep.
if you're a basketball player and you're traveling to a school to go play basketball, you are just a basketball player. You are going there to play basketball.
Right.
The same way you would go to college to play college basketball. You're
sure.
a student athlete, but
Yep.
you're there because you're playing basketball. And, you know, Brian came to me again and was like, I want you to be a part of what I'm trying to create here and what I'm trying to establish. And I'd love for you to, you know, be available to train these kids and this team if it's something that, you know, they want to do and they, like, have the time to do and blah, blah, blah. And so I was like, absolutely. So, you know, I started up about 10 weeks prior to the tryouts. I started up a, like, men's basketball performance program out of Speakeasy. And, you know, Brian helped me market it and blast it, and I got a lot of those kids that came. And,
Cool.
you know, I trained them. We got after it for 10 weeks. We went twice a week for 10 weeks, focused on, like, strength, little bit of conditioning, not too much, agility, plyometrics, injury prevention, mobility, you know, anything that a professional athlete would do. And it was, for me, it was like establishing this foundation.
At that young age, do those kids really appreciate all that?
They had fun. You know,
Okay,
they're in there with
cool.
their buddies. Like,
Yeah.
But, again, like, it was hard work, too.
Sure.
And, Brian came to me at the end of tryouts and just kind of was like, whoa, like what you did with these kids in like 10 weeks.
Cool.
He goes, I came like prior to that 10 weeks, he was like looking at his team. He was like, oh man, well, like, what are we going to do here?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like bad news
And
bears.
then 10 weeks, like, after that 10 weeks, and I'm not saying that these kids made these insane, like, transformations, but consistency builds confidence.
Mm-hmm.
Confidence will start to exude into other areas of your life.
For sure.
And, at this point, did he have the most skilled team? No. But did he have a team that was ready to run their head through a wall? Yes.
That was one thing. Like my lacrosse coach, we were like the teams up north were like so much more competitive just because the game was like older and around more up there. We were the only team on the shore like for a long time. We traveled everywhere, but like so we didn't have like a ton of skilled players. But what we did was like we were well conditioned. Like you know what I mean? Like when the other team was like. Sucking wind in the fourth quarter, like we were still running.
You're ready to go, man.
And that's a difference. You know what I mean? Because if somebody's tired, you're scoring.
Yeah,
you know
exactly.
What I mean?
Yeah, and that's, I think that's underrated.
Yeah.
And I after that 10 weeks, my wheels just kind of start to spin, and Brian came to me again at the end of the season, and was like, all right, we got to do something again. And this time, we opened it up to 12 weeks, a 12-week, 3 times a week basketball performance program. And this is like the real birth of the Simpkins system. Is I got, in the first week, Monday, I had like 8 kids show up. Nobody paid. Tuesday, 11, 12 kids showed up. Nobody paid. Thursday, 14 kids show up. Nobody paid. And I remember going home Thursday after the first week of this program, and I was just like sitting there thinking to myself, I was like,
was that the point? Like, were you like, all right, I want them to see, like, I'm not gonna charge, or were you just like?
No, I mean they knew, like Brian had.
Okay.
Brian had told the parents. Brian had told the kids this is gonna be happening.
Okay.
Sign up. It's gonna help you with X, Y, and Z, and yada yada yada, and the next Monday, 14 kids show up again. Every single parent came in, checkbook, cash, Venmo, wanting my phone number. My son loves this.
Sick.
This is amazing.
Yeah.
He was excited to be coming here tonight. All this stuff, and I was just like, all right, cool.
Nice.
All right, we got something here.
Yeah.
We got something here, and that group now we're into. They have this week off because they're all on spring break, but we're about to be entering our 7th week of the program. And I have a consistent group of people that show up every Monday, Tuesday, Thursday. And these kids, they work. They work. And we have a great time. Some of the parents, they'll text me. And from that group, I'm now privately training 3 of them on top of the 3 days that I'm already doing.
Wow.
And, I know the kids want to be there. I've already proven that.
Mm-hmm.
And going back to, my system of individual training and then small group training, what I'm going to do is I want to host camps, postseason camps, specific camps, preseason camps, where I'll open it up to a larger group of kids, and I'm still I would say that 14 would probably be my max.
Yeah, right.
That would be my max. I don't want 20, 30, 40 kids coming through.
Yeah.
And I've got a friend that's helping me out with the program. We're running it out of actually his facility in Neptune.
Right.
His name is Mike, and he's been awesome. And it's nice to have another person on staff that understands the sports performance aspect, that enjoys working with that demographic of of people, like, like young adult, high level athlete wants to play their sport at the next level.
Yeah.
So that's what like the whole Simpkins system is going to be. It's going to be individual training that will evolve slowly into small group training of athletes that I feel would work well together. And then in their postseasons, preseasons, I would host camps for an opportunity for a larger group to get together and get after it and teach. My big thing is teaching. I like, that's a coach, A coach is somebody that teaches you about yourself.
Yeah.
And a coach can be anybody.
For sure. And then also for you to teach is to learn again, which is also a pretty, for me.
Like, I learn a lot from these kids.
Absolutely.
I learn so much from these kids.
Yeah, but by you jumping back in, you're like, you're continuing to grow the new techniques that you're always like putting in front of yourself. You know what I mean? Like without that,
But it gives, like, it's funny because I watch myself how I coach these kids, and I'll never forget one of the first kids that I had in the 10-week program prior to season starting. He came to me, and I'm pretty sure he had 2 left shoes on, and didn't make eye contact. Could definitely tell he was kind of like the dorkier kid, and my initial reaction is like, oh man, here we go. Like, this is not what I wanted. I don't want to train these types of like athletes.
Right.
Like, I want athletes. And then in that moment, while I'm having that thought, I was taken back to like myself as like an overweight kid, insecure, and I just remembered like saying to myself, you have an opportunity right now to change this kid's life.
That's super powerful.
And I, like, from that moment on, everything changed. I, instead of telling him over and over again, like, what he was doing wrong, you're not listening, like, no, like, my patience, like, I had, like, all the patience in the world out of nowhere. And if I came to this realization, if someone doesn't understand something that I'm saying, it's not their fault.
How am I delivering the message?
It's my fault.
Yeah. Humbling.
Yes, 100%. 100%. And I went back to Brian and I told him about that kid. And at the end of the season, that kid's parents contacted Brian and said something like, I guess, like negative about their kid. And Brian said to them, he goes, I want you to know something, that when I asked Emmy at the end of that program, like, who stood out the most, she mentioned your son's name first. And, like, he said that parents, like, comments, like, stopped dead in their tracks.
Yeah. Like.
And, like, wow. Like, that he was the most improved. And for me, that was validation that, I was doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of people today, like, lose patience really quickly.
Yeah.
Because
That's
they can't
the win.
look at themselves, and be honest with themselves about, like, what are your intentions? Like, what are you trying to get out of this? And I now, with my kids, it's an opportunity for me, in the future, if I ever have kids, like, how am I going to parent them?
Right.
And my patience with them. And every opportunity that you're presented with is an opportunity. Like, any situation you're in is an opportunity. It's an opportunity to better yourself. It's an opportunity to better somebody else around you. And, that's like the basis of, like, the Simpkins system, is that you have an opportunity to make everybody else around you better. And in the process, you're going to make yourself a hell of a lot better.
Absolutely. Yep. We were kind of talking about that yesterday. The more that you put your hand out, and like, you'll get so much more back from that.
Yeah.
Right. There's the service in all of it, and just the love that you give to all these places, all these people, and all these initiatives, all this stuff that you want to do always comes back to you.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's never something like that I can like pull from like immediately, right? I'm like, you know what, man? Like I'm having a shitty day. Like, how about some of that fucking love I gave out last week? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then like it'll just come back, you know, out of nowhere,
Out of
and and you're just like super grateful. And then you know when I'm jammed up, you know, there's a bunch of hands out there that want to help me. You know what I mean? And like that's a beauty. It's not just about like what you're, you know, really what you're doing, you know, for the kids athletically. It's something that's, you know, within you.
Yeah.
That fills you up, you know.
Absolutely.
You
Yeah.
know?
And I'm super grateful and excited for how this progresses and
Cool.
and yeah, like it's been fun. It's been really fun. It's really, you know, I felt like I was getting to a point kind of there, like with that plateauing area of like, you know, what's going to be next in my life? You know, am I really going to be waking up? I know we talked about this, you know, at 45, 50 years old coaching group fitness classes.
Yeah.
And I think my goals and aspirations is I want to create something and that can live on, that can continue going on. And like,
For
you
sure.
know, these kids, you know, maybe I feel like anybody that's played sports, you know, has had a coach in their life that changed their life in some capacity.
Mm-hmm.
And if I can be that for one kid, and then that kid can be that for somebody else, you know, you've started this,
For sure.
you know, this snowball of just positivity and a mindset, and because it's, you know, my slogan is creating the uncommon.
Yep.
It's, I would say that it is uncommon these days, you know, like
Authenticity. For sure.
and like people being genuine.
Yeah.
And I think that social media like
caring is not cool.
Caring's not cool. It's definitely not cool.
Yeah.
Caring's
and
not.
it's like it's not cool, and like
Being vulnerable is not cool.
No. You're looked at like as a coward almost.
Acceptance isn't cool.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like just like dealing with all types of like it's cool when I can put it on Instagram and I can get a like out of it, right?
Right.
But if it's not, you know, if it's something that's like real,
Yeah.
people don't. It seems that people just don't really want to deal with that.
But
And
I think that people would find that authenticity is way cooler than
strength.
what you're. Yeah.
The real strong.
It's vulnerability, authenticity, and acceptance of things that are out of your control. You know, I know we talked about it a little bit yesterday, but the story that people tell themselves.
That inner talk, that narrative, you
yeah.
know what I mean? And that's like probably one of that leads me to the question that, so you're a very successful woman, Division I athlete, co-owner, business owner, just launching this new program. How do you deal with like fear? What are like some of the things that you really were like intimidated, scared, like off the field that you know a lot of this is translated into, because I'm a firm believer of like in life you're either faced with like love and fear, and when I'm like not living in fear, I'm, you know, necessarily like not living in love in a sense that, you know, like there's fucking butterflies everywhere, but like I'm in a place like where I'm present and I'm calm and I'm able to be useful to myself and to others around me. So like, you know, you seem like a badass woman. Like, what do you like what's it like when you're all jammed up, or when you were jammed up in your life, or when you had to really face something that was not being able to like picked up and thrown? Like what, like how did it go for you?
I think it's evolved, as I've evolved. You know, I think in the past, like when I've been presented with issues and things that I didn't want to deal with, or tough times, or you know, any sort of adversity, I was always pointing the finger. You know,
For sure.
Or doing the woe is me, or why me, why this, you know, like that kind of mentality that the world was doing something to me. Like this was being done to me. And again, I think for the majority of my life up until like as of recently, the last couple of years, I fell back onto the story that I kept telling myself of my relationship with my father.
Right.
And the how I grew up. And it's like, shut the fuck up, Emmy. Like, you grew up in a nice home.
Mm-hmm.
You went to school.
Yeah.
You had food every single day.
Yeah.
You had a night, like, you went to a great school, had great friends. Yeah, was my parents' relationship, like, pretty shitty and, like, probably saw and heard and experienced a lot of things that I probably shouldn't have as a young kid? Absolutely.
Right.
You're 32 fucking years old.
Yeah.
Let go of the story, man.
Yeah.
Like, let it go.
Yep. Yep.
Let it go. And like for a long time that's where I was. That's where I sat. I sat and blamed and wanted to hate my dad and wanted to tell the world like this is why I am the way I am. This is why I deal with things this way because of him. And it's like, no, like that story is gonna get you so far.
Yeah.
And then if you fall victim to it, you're stuck there.
Yeah.
You're stuck there. And that was the comfortable thing for me to do, was to tell that story. And finally, when it got to a point that I was just like, all right, nothing's changing here. Nothing's changing. So you've got to have this courage to kind of look at yourself. And, my big thing that I say to myself now is, the few big things that I say to myself now are, one, own your shit.
Yeah.
Own it. Like, take responsibility if you do or do not do something.
Mm-hmm.
People will have way more respect for you when you own your shit. Second thing is when you find yourself in a position of, like, where you've been before, arguing with your significant other, and where you would maybe typically, like, blow up, start screaming, throwing things, or leave, shut your phone off, and disappear, and have them worrying about, like, where you're at, what you're doing, et cetera, et cetera. It's when you find yourself about to have that reaction and do the same thing again, pause and say to yourself, do something different this time.
Yeah.
Like, do something different. And then the third thing is, after I say do something different, I ask myself, what don't I want to do, or what is hard for me to do right now?
Yeah.
And because that's generally what I should be doing.
Yeah.
And then I'll do it.
Do you feel like that? So that's the same mentality as to like what you do physically in a gym, right, or
Absolutely.
in the sport, right? So like on the other side of that, it's difficult to do that emotionally, though.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It's hard, but again, just like the physical aspect, like the more you do it, the more you show up.
Right.
The easier it becomes.
Yeah.
And then you start to rewire. Just like when you start like lifting weights and you're lifting weights consistently, there is a neurological adaptation that occurs that changes your body
And your makeup. Yeah.
and your makeup.
Yeah.
The same thing happens emotionally.
Yeah.
When you change the way you respond or react to things, and you pause and you think about, what you would typically do, and then you have like this quick flash of like who you want to be, you'll start to see that needle starts to slowly, but that's what people say, like, you got to go through it sometimes.
Oh, 1000%.
You got to go through it, and that's like that slow needle of making that small little change more regularly. And you'll have slip ups, you'll
sure.
fall back, but again, like, own it. If you fall back,
Falling back, it's like those times where you do like revert back to that old. They're
Yeah.
smaller. They're smaller. You know what I mean? I don't spend
Right.
that much time in that shit anymore.
Right, yeah.
Now I go out and I
but then
own it.
if you fall back into that space briefly, own it. Recognize it, accept it, apologize to whoever you need to apologize, whether it's somebody else or yourself, and do better next time.
Yeah.
And
People like that.
what? Yeah.
People, no, they do. They do. Like
Yeah,
that.
they love that.
respect. Like people respect that. Like because they're not expecting it. Like we just talked about like everything that's going on in the world. People don't expect you to be like, yo, listen. I was super shitty last night.
Yeah.
And like I just want to tell you that like I'm I know that I was wrong, and I try to be better.
Yeah.
Next time, is there anything I can do to make it right? You know what I mean? Like when you say that to people, they're like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah.
They're like,
really?
"Right? What's wrong with you?"
But like you'll start to notice that when you can start to approach people like that, you'll start to see their defense back down.
Yep.
And then there becomes this moment of, okay, man, I forgive you.
Yeah.
But now, like, you've got to prove that. You know what I mean? So next time you have to do things differently.
Mm-hmm.
You have to.
Yep.
So, yeah. I mean, I would say that, again, going back to the original question, I've evolved. Like, and constant evolution and constant, like, trying to be better, trying to do things differently.
Mm-hmm.
And when I've been faced with adversity and, I think there's a difference between fear and doubt. I think that fear is inevitable.
Right.
Like everybody is afraid of failing. Everybody is afraid of having their heart broken. Everybody's afraid of, or fearful of something.
Mm-hmm.
That's natural.
Right.
Doubt it comes from a place of unpreparedness.
Okay.
Of not being prepared for something. Like when you're doubting your abilities. Like the perfect example is like stepping out onto a match or a game. Everybody's afraid of losing.
Right.
Everybody's afraid of messing
Yeah.
up. But if you're doubtful, it's because you know deep down in your heart that you didn't do everything you could to prepare for that moment.
Just a manifestation of you being
prepared.
unprepared.
Yeah, of being prepared or unprepared. And fear, again, natural.
Mm-hmm.
Something that you should have. You should have that. Doubt, if you doubt your relationship, if you doubt your performance, it's because you're not showing up as your best self.
Nothing ever grows there.
No. Nothing ever grows in moments of doubt. And I think that people interchange those two words frequently, and don't know really what one means versus the other. Mm-hmm. And I learned that from what my soccer coach at Rutgers, Mike O'Neill. I'll never forget it. And I revert back to this, and I tell this to my kids sometimes too. If I feel like they're kind of lingering in this of like not really giving their all, kind of, half-assing it or whatever.
Yeah.
We had lost a really big game, and we're all in the locker room. We're all heads down, crying, upset, and the coaching staff comes in, and there have been some games where they'd come in screaming and yelling and pointing the fingers and telling us everything that we did wrong, and rightfully so,
Mm-hmm.
But this time was different. He comes in, and it was dead silent for a while. And I just remember, like, we all kind of just, like, looked up, and he was very emotional, and he was just, like, he said to us, "You have every right to feel what you're feeling right now. Because you guys did absolutely everything you were supposed to do to prepare for this game today. They were just the better team."
Yeah.
It's in moments where you don't do everything to prepare for a moment or a game or whatever that you're not allowed to be upset.
Right.
Because you didn't do
fair.
everything in
That's
your
fair.
power to prepare. And that's like where that doubt comes in. If we hadn't done everything to prepare for that game, we would step on the field with doubt. And we would have lost the game because we were unprepared.
Mm-hmm.
And if we went into the locker room and we were crying and we were upset, you have no right to be crying and upset because you didn't do everything. But we knew that we did. And that lesson has, like, really stuck with me.
Yeah.
It's really stuck with me. And
it makes the pain of losing not so bad.
Yeah.
Like when you know that you left it all on the field, and sometimes they're just, that's just their day.
Losing's part of it, man. Losing's part of it.
Losing gives it a buzz, man. Makes the winning so much better.
Yeah. There's another saying. It's like you either. Oh, what is it? It's You either win or you learn. You don't win or you lose.
Yep.
You win or you learn.
It's true.
It is. And you can look at both as
But I think that that's like another like thing that's kind of like instilled in you through like guidance, you know what I mean? Because if I internalize a loss as like I'm a piece of shit, you know what I mean? Like then I'll never get better and I'll likely to give up. Yeah. You know what I mean? But if like, if I have the right people around me and be like, yo, like look, this is what you did. So the guy that Charlie Mills I just interviewed, he said that he's like we take what was good out of that and we take what is bad out of that, and what was good out of that is really outweighs way more than what was bad. So then it was actually it's a win.
I mean,
we take so much from those experiences.
Yeah, I think, but people focus a lot on the negatives of experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Like
oh yeah,
for whatever reason, that's always like
it's so much easier to grab shitty emotions.
Yeah, it is. Doesn't that suck?
It's just weird. I find that always to be so much like it's so much easier for me to be angry and upset than it is for me to naturally be joyful and grateful. Yes.
It's like
yep.
What? Like why are we wired like that?
I don't know.
Like I don't get it.
Yeah.
It's so much easier to like when one thing goes bad in a day, you just literally hold on to that.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, how about everything else great that happened today?
Yes.
That you don't have, like, it's like your mind just doesn't want to like hold on to those things.
No, absolutely, and that's why it's like the importance of having the right people around you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
people that get you.
Yeah, people that and also people that'll. It's important that I have people around me to tell me to shut the fuck up. You know what I mean? And also,
that hold you accountable.
Yes, exactly.
People that
like
hold
people
you
would be
accountable.
like, like you're Darren, you're being selfish, you're being a baby, you're being an asshole.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Because sometimes I can't see further than my nose. You know what I mean?
It's the people that you're gonna call out. Like if someone makes you feel a certain way.
Yeah.
And you're gonna tell them how something made you feel, and they're gonna completely disregard it.
Mm-hmm.
They're not your friends.
I know. I have a couple people that'll just like shoot straight with me, and I don't know where I'd be today if I didn't have that. You know what I mean? Because if I, because my first thought process is to like run away from that fucking, that like that resistance of like you're not going along with the way that like can't you see how great of a guy I am type of thing like like I'm like what do you mean what do you mean you know what I mean like don't you remember when I did this and that and he's like yeah dude but that doesn't mean the way that you showed up today though you know what I mean like you can't just because you've done things in the past that doesn't translate you know what I mean it doesn't carry on to you don't stay fucking full on last night's meal you know what I mean
exactly
So listen, I want to thank you for coming on today. This was cool.
This was awesome, great. Man. This was a lot of fun.
A lot of fun. We got a lot of great stuff.
I hope so, yeah.
And thanks again. Real quick, where can everybody find you?
You can find me on the gram, the Instagram at Simpkins_Emmy, and it's EMMY like the Emmy Awards.
Okay.
You can also find my gym, Speakeasy at CF Speakeasy. You can also find us on the gram. We also have our website, CrossFitSpeakeasy.com. From there, I'm on Twitter. I'm trying to get my Twitter fingers going. I can't really keep up with the Twitter world, and got some TikTok in the making. Apparently, I got to get that going. But for right now, all my content you can find me on the gram.
Good.
So.
Very cool. Well, thanks again.
No, thank you, Darren. This was awesome.
Sweet.
A lot of fun.
Yeah, man. Cool.